then opening statements by the leaders, then we will take your questions. Sir, please.
A very good afternoon to all the friends from the media. Sincerest apologies for being a little late, but you know that discussions sometimes overshoot time. But thank you so much for waiting and for joining us at this very important press conference. A very warm welcome to His Excellency, the Secretary of State for the Department of Business and Trade from the United Kingdom to Incredible India, and to his delegation, a very high-powered delegation which has accompanied him in the discussions this morning. We've just had a visit to the National Crafts Museum, which is a living heritage hub showcasing India's rich tradition, culture, diversity, and history, and which also showcases some elements of the Indo-British ties. We are guided by visionary leaders of the United Kingdom and India, Prime Minister Starmer and Prime Minister Modi, to work towards resumption of free trade agreement negotiations. And together we are both happy to announce that we have taken a decision to once again get back to the discussions which are on the table, which because of the elections got stalled, and since there was a change in government in the United Kingdom and a new political leadership, a new team at the helm of affairs, it needed to be once again assessed in terms of the new leadership's direction and priorities. And I'm immensely pleased that both Jonathan and I have agreed to resume free trade agreement negotiations in a very, very cordial atmosphere and with great trust between the two governments, which was reflected in the meeting this morning. Friends, United Kingdom and India strike a perfect chord. Just as Coldplay's A Sky Full of Stars, which lit up the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad with 130,000 participants, Indians, roaring their way through only earlier this month, in harmony with Chris Martin, the main performer of Coldplay, taking a dip at the Mahakumbh in Uttar Pradesh at Prayagraj. And in a small way, I had a role to play. I was in Brussels having a meeting with the EU when I got a call that Chris Martin would like to go to the Mahakumbh. And from there, I was organizing Chris's visit to Prayagraj. So all the stars are aligned, and I'm very confident that we will be able to make rapid progress to meet the collective aspirations for trade, investment, and the mutual prosperity of the people of United Kingdom and India. It's also very auspicious that we are restarting discussions today, just before we celebrate Mahashivratri, day after tomorrow, which is the sacred union of Shiv and Shakti. And we showed him a lot of Shiv and a lot of Durga Shakti at the National Crafts Museum today. I think that is a great messaging. I would like to reaffirm our collective commitment to meet the aspirations of the people and businesses of both countries and to fulfill the desire of both our leaders, which was decided at the first meeting of G20 at the first time when both leaders met at Rio during the G20 last year. Friends, we have decided to build upon the strong groundwork that 14 previous rounds had developed, and I would like to call this FTA a forward-looking, transparent, and ambitious, equitable, balanced, and mutually beneficial agreement, which will be a win-win for both our countries. Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon. I am thrilled to be here today with you, my friend, Minister Goyal, to relaunch negotiations towards the UK-India trade deal and investment treaty. Thank you, my friend, for such a warm welcome. We first met when I was in opposition. I pledged my support for this initiative then. We met just after the election, and here we are together today, a very special moment. In what is an increasingly volatile and multipolar world, India is a vital partner for the UK. We are lucky to already have such a strong relationship with India, of course underpinned by the living bridge between our countries, the 1.7 million people with Indian heritage who call the UK their home. But our relationship is about so much more than numbers. Our countries are deeply intertwined through our shared principles as two democracies committed to the rules-based international order, and through culture, from Bollywood to curry to sport, though I've got to convince you to have more Sunderland AFC shirts here in India. We'll work on that as part of this deal. But of course, what binds us together even further is our shared ambition through championing free and open trade and investment to drive jobs and growth across both of our countries. It's an excellent place to start from, but both of us want to do more. And that's why I am so pleased to be here today, to kickstart these negotiations, to strengthen our close and vibrant relationship, and unlock new opportunities for businesses and consumers across both the UK and India. Because at the centre of my government is a mission to deliver economic growth, to put pounds back in people's pockets, to support our businesses to thrive, and to create wealth and jobs and opportunity. And I know that Minister Goyal and his colleagues share this mission too, to improve the lives of people across their country and deliver real, tangible change. Through these negotiations and securing a mutually beneficial deal, we can together do just that. That's not to say this will be easy, and Pierce, your reputation as an excellent negotiator precedes you, but you are a man who gets things done. So I look forward to working with you closely and our skilled negotiating teams to drive these talks forward and to deliver on our mutual ambitions for growth. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll begin with a question from our guest reporter, Eleni from The Guardian.
Can you hear me? Yes, great. Hi. Okay. Hi. Eleni Correa from The Guardian. This is a question for both Minister Goyal and the Secretary of State. Given the progress that's been made so far, can you both commit to agreeing a free trade agreement this year?
It's never too early and never too late to conclude a good agreement. I think I have consistently maintained in all our trade negotiations over the years that trade agreements are for a long-term future. One has to crystal gaze maybe 20, 30, 50 years into the future and make a robust agreement which is a win-win for both sides. And therefore, neither should we rush into things, but it's always good to conclude fast, so we will have speed but not haste.
Very well put, if I may say so. Eleni, I would say, first of all, that any agreement of this kind, exactly as Minister Goyal has said, is something, if you get it right, is about the long-term future, and is something that makes a huge and substantive difference to the relationships between countries, and you've got to think about it in that long-term sense. And I think we've said repeatedly, for us it's about the quality of agreement rather than the speed at delivering them. But I can say as part of that, there is real urgency, I feel, as part of this process. This is a top priority for the UK government. It has not just my support, but the very strong support of the Prime Minister, obviously my key colleagues in the Cabinet, the Chancellor, the Foreign Secretary. This is something that means a great deal to us. And exactly as Minister Goyal has said, I feel the productive nature of what we've already been able to discuss today, looking to the future as to what we need to narrow down as issues, is incredibly positive, and I've enjoyed that discussion a great deal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rajesh from Press Trust of India, PTI. This side, sir. Closer, mic closer.
Sir, we are negotiating a bilateral investment treaty also. So are we aiming to conclude the talks of BIT along with the FTA?
All options are on the table, and we are in active negotiation on 3 different fronts: the free trade agreement, the bilateral investment treaty, and a double contribution convention agreement. And all 3 are in parallel and conjoint with each other.
I thoroughly concur with that and say I believe all of those aspects of what we are discussing, as Minister Goyal has said, are about genuine mutual benefits to the UK and to India, things that will, if we get it right, be of real consequence and benefit to both countries, to businesses within them, to people within them. People will feel a difference from them. And again, a very, very productive session this morning in that regard.
Ms. Claire, would you like to have a go? The mic is in front of you. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Claire Ellicott from the Daily Mail. Secretary of State, are you willing to increase the number of Indian worker visas as part of a free trade agreement? And Minister Goyal, is that something... it was about visas for Indian workers. Is that a key part of what you're looking for in a deal?
I think there must have been some misunderstanding along the way, because I've been reading free trade agreements even before I became a minister 11 years ago, and I've been negotiating many free trade agreements in the last 6 years. But immigration has never been a part of trade negotiations, I think, anywhere in the world. They're 2 totally different subjects, and India has never, ever discussed immigration in any free trade agreement negotiations.
I think the position from Minister Goyal is clear in that regard. Claire, I would say that from our part in the UK, we deal with immigration, as do you, separate to our free trade agreements. We welcome the huge and important relationship we have with people from India coming to the UK, whether that's to study, whether that is to be part of businesses. And obviously, business mobility is a separate issue to immigration. And I think it's just important to have that clarification. I do feel, as you have said, Minister, there's been at times some misunderstanding in the United Kingdom around that. And I think, again, helpful to put on the record the correct position.
Mr. Siddharth, Times of India.
I'm Siddharth from the Times of India. I have a follow-up question on the visa issue. So what you're saying is that business visas would be part of it, and what about student visas and, after the student graduates, some flexibility there? Could that be part of the agreement, number one? And number two, this is a question for both the ministers. Do we see, given the current, global trade environment, do we see more FTAs coming in the next 12 months, 18 months? Not necessarily limited to the India-UK FTA, but FTAs in general. Thank you.
Well, in several countries, Indian students are going to receive education. They go to the United States, they go to Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Also, Brussels, Belgium, and many other countries. And almost all the countries, to incentivize their education business and attract more people, do give a certain period of time for students to gain practical experience, to work in their country, but that's a short-term business work visa. It has nothing to do with immigration as such. And for example, in Australia FTA, we have a clause that if somebody does a diploma, he gets an 18-month work permit, provided he has job in hand. If he does graduation, they get a 2-year work permit if they have a job in hand. So it's like a business visa or a work visa. If they do STEM studies, they get 3 years work visa. And if they do post-graduation, they get a 4-year work visa. What we had agreed with the Australian government was that that regime will continue and India will not be discriminated against for the students who go to study there, who spend billions of dollars to gain education and add to the economy. And of course, if they get a job, it's only then that they get that permission. And there also they add to the economy. So that should not be confused or misunderstood to be inflation, to be immigration. And as regards free trade agreements, I think all of us in this room, and I'm sure the British journalists must also be tracking the India moves. We are in dialogue across the world on several trade agreements, and we believe that modern India, the emerging super powerhouse of the economy, today contributing 16% to global growth, the fastest growing large economy on earth, will benefit as we globalize, as we integrate our economy with the developed world. And you will observe from our actions that India is entering into more and more free trade agreements with developed countries with whom we believe we have a lot of complementarity, and with whom we can benefit, they can benefit, and make it a true success story as a partnership. Thank you.
Absolutely. So on our existing arrangements in the United Kingdom, Indian nationals are hugely represented just because of the strength of the relationship that exists, a hugely welcome and positive one, and the kind of arrangements the Minister has outlined already benefit the United Kingdom and India a great deal. I know your question on FTAs was very much aimed at Piyush, but I would say obviously we have our own programme in the UK, but I think we would both say what is very, very exciting about this negotiation is the complementary nature of what we're talking about, the genuine mutual benefits, the kind of things where if we get it right for both sides, there's a huge upside to it. And I do think that's what excites me so much about what we've been talking about today.
Ms. Samira from BBC. Give the handheld mic. Yeah, take that mic. Yeah, take that mic.
Oh, great, thank you. Mr. Goyal, I'm wondering about the business mobility visas as you characterize. Have you heard from the UK any kind of loosening or increase of those specific business visas that are going to be happening as part of this FTA? And to the Secretary of State, India has some of the highest tariffs in the world as assessed by the World Bank. Have you heard any language from India in terms of loosening some of these high tariffs on UK goods coming into India? And while I'm talking about tariffs, how worried is the UK about the United States and its calls for reciprocal tariffs? And will there be a conversation with the United States in terms of restarting FTA negotiations? I talk fast.
The first one was about?
Business mobility
Yeah.
visas.
Well, when we are opening up services in a big way, and we are opening up each other's economies to attract more investment, and UK is one country where United Kingdom's businesses are invested in India, and Indian businesses are equally invested in the UK. So we have a number of large business groups. Tata's owns Jaguar, Tata's owns Chorus, Piramals have a pharma unit there. We have a number of real estate developers working in London and other parts of UK. We have the Ruyas who have a refinery. And I mean, this is what comes to the top of my head. There are many more businesses where Indian companies have invested there. Likewise, we have JCB in India, and they export to nearly 70 or 80 countries from India because it's so competitive to manufacture in India. I think that's where the complementarity of investments. We have also, as a part of free trade agreement, opened up each other's services sectors while protecting the sensitivities that each country has, so that can open up new opportunities. And obviously for all of this, business visas will be required, and they will be linked to investment, linked to the services that are going to be opened up. So I don't see any difficulty in that. And I do think they're already quite open between the two countries. And if we wish to expand our trade and investments, obviously we'll have to be faster and more liberal in our issuance of visas. Also, a lot of tourism between the two countries. I am on record many times to say London is my favorite city. And I do think tourism has huge potential, both sides. As regards tariffs, while he will respond also, that's what the whole free trade agreement is about. Many of the tariffs that India has are really to protect us from non-market economies, non-transparent economies, or economies which are known for predatory pricing or dumping of goods. And I think between the United Kingdom and India, we have much more flexibility and ability to significantly reduce tariffs to make business more competitive between the two countries.
I would just add to that. First of all, as a services-based economy, business mobility is an ask from the UK in trade negotiations. So again, a positive basis for a discussion and a relationship to take forward on that. On tariffs, we'll not get into the individual details, but incredibly constructive morning that we've had. I said to Minister Goyal, this is not one of those meetings or days where you dance around the issues and you don't really talk about the things that matters. We get down to it, we've got to the things we feel we need to find agreement on, been frank, candid about that, had our excellent teams work on that whilst we've done that lovely cultural trip as well. That was absolutely wonderful. In relation to your question on the United States, look, I think all trade ministers, certainly in the UK, we recognise the different agenda on trade the new administration in the United States has a mandate for. We understand the basis for that, which is their concern about some of the deficits in manufactured goods the United States has with other parts of the world. That isn't the case between the US and the United Kingdom. It's a very balanced trading relationship in that regard. So we respect the agenda they're coming with and we will engage with them. I've had a couple of very positive conversations with Commerce Secretary Lutnick following his confirmation by the Senate formally last week. So I believe when it comes to the United Kingdom, there's certainly the basis for a very constructive and positive discussion to come out of that. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but I think there's certainly an agenda on strengthening the trading relationship between the United Kingdom and the United States that we would certainly be interested in pursuing, and I think there is because of the nature of that very balanced trading relationship, there's a strong position to start from in regard to that.
Ms. Kirtika from Economic Times.
Free trade agreement, which will give businesses and people of both countries huge opportunities to grow our current $20 billion bilateral trade in merchandise to probably 2 or 3x in the next 10 years.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. A great question, we're not going to answer the detail of, but exactly as the Minister has said, if you look at the strength of this trading relationship, social and cultural relationship alongside that, it's of huge value. We believe by 2040 it could be half as much again on top of that. So we're talking about things that make a real difference for the future. And from a United Kingdom point of view, our pitch to business is quite straightforward. It's that the UK now has the political stability that it's really needed. It's that we are open to the rest of the world politically. That's how we sell ourselves, and what a great example this would be. And of course, that we're using the mandate we have in the House of Commons, the new government has, to really improve the business environment, whether that's on skills, regulation, planning, public investment and infrastructure. And what is so good and exciting again about this is that it's an example of all of those things in a way, and a chance to build on a relationship which is already so strong. You know, sometimes I find you look around the world, you may see trade agreements and they've been driven and they haven't yet kind of captured the imagination of businesses or people to get behind those opportunities. This wouldn't be the case here. We've got businesses on both sides saying, this is great, but we could do even better. We're ambitious as the political leads on this. And again, I think it needs no sort of encouragement from individuals, from businesses to take advantage of some of the opportunities I believe we'll be able to unlock if we get this right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
friends. We conclude. Thank you.